look, and the governor, your governor, obviously your partner Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger have been pushing back against the, quote, massive spigot of election disinformation that has been being spread, right, by Trump and some of his allies. But does it appear this has just taken hold? I mean, here's what some Georgia voters have said, to our reporters over the past few days. Here they are.
That this whole election is a farce.
Do you believe the election results?
No.
Who do you believe on the election?
I'm not sure what to believe, honestly.
So, will statements like the one coming from your governor tonight help, from the Secretary of State, right, where they said this is not right? Or are you worried, Lieutenant Governor, that people may just believe that this was rigged, even though obviously that's not true?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the amount of misinformation that continues to fly around. I mean, folks in my inner circle that are, very educated, very successful individuals, sending you a screenshot of a Facebook post or a Twitter post that, takes, 30 seconds to debunk.
We have some breaking news for you in our world lead. CNN has obtained leaked documents from inside China, documents that reveal the missteps and the chaos of the Chinese government's early response to the virus pandemic. The documents are from Hubei province, home to the city of Wuhan, where the pandemic is thought to have started. They show authorities released misleading public data on the number of deaths and the number of cases.
You're unmuted.
Hey, Jeff Zucker, you there? Hey, this is James O'Keefe. We've been listening to your CNN calls for basically 2 months, recording everything. Just wanted to ask you some questions if you have a minute. Do you still feel you're the most trusted name in news? Because I have to say, from what I've been hearing on these phone calls, I don't know about that. I mean, we got a lot of recordings that indicate you're not really that independent of a journalist.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So everybody, in light of that, I think what we'll do is we'll set up a new system and we'll be back with you. We'll do the rest of the call a little bit later.
We're going to release those recordings today at 7 o'clock. So stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. You're at the wellhead of the massive spigot of disinformation. Aaron Burnett squirming. And we have reached out. That was the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. We have reached out to the Lieutenant Governor. And we want to take him up on his challenge. It takes him 30 seconds to rebut all the disinformation about what's going on with the steal that's happened down in Georgia. And so we've invited the male model to come on and let's hear about it. We'll give him the facts. We'll walk him through the facts. We want to hear his 30-second rebuttal. We even give him longer than that because he ought to address it. I don't think he's addressed any of this as the governor hasn't. Okay, you're live in the nation's capital. This is the War Room. It is the 1st of December. It's Tuesday, 1st of December, year of our Lord 2020. The beginning of the last month in what did the Chinese call it? An interesting year. We wanted to also play, we're very proud of this show that rolled in from War Room Impeachment. The breaking news, the huge scoop that Jake Tapper's talking about. I think we talked about Jack Maxey on our show on January 23rd. Jake, just you and Zucker, we could go back and show you if you've been paying attention. We walked through the whole thing. I believe, and it was Webster's Dictionary, I think the other day said they gave the word of 2020. Every year they announced the word of the year. The word of the year was announced as pandemic. And we called this a pandemic on January 21st, 22nd, something like that, 23rd, when we launched. Because everybody's 25th. Everybody's saying what happened, what went on, what's this pandemic? I think it was CNN didn't start calling it a pandemic. I want to say till March.
Let's get real, Steve.
That was 40.
The World Health Organization didn't call it a pandemic till March.
Till March, yeah. And that's when it did it. Guys, you're just slow. You got hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of investigative and the K file and all that, and it's a joke, right? You sit up there and you have not gone through and looked at what's going on in the steal of this election. It's a travesty, and this is why the American people don't trust you anymore. And you can sit there and call it the massive spigot of disinformation, but you can see from when they go around to just citizens. Citizens, the American people are smart enough. Look, we'll get up in a second. We're trying to get John Fredericks. John Fredericks on. So let's go. Look, we got news. We've got to get to tomorrow's news today. One of the things we're proudest of here has been focusing on Georgia, and we want to tell all the hedge fund guys, all you guys on Wall Street that are skipping around from City of London to Wall Street and thinking, oh, divided government's going to be great. It's not going to be a divided government. The Republicans in Georgia are not going to win as we sit here today. They're not going to win. Okay, you could take that and take it to number 2 pencil and write that down. Not going to win. The reason they're not going to win, and we're not people saying stay home. We're practical people. We're saying they are going to stay home unless the establishment in Georgia, that lieutenant governor, the governor, and the secretary of state start to go in and show the people of what an honest, fair election is, particularly Trump supporters. I want to go now to John Fredericks, our partner on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're also on Real America's Voice. Our partners in Denver do an amazing job of producing the show and distributing it. Also Newsmax TV. And, of course, G News and GTV everywhere in the known and unknown world. I want to bring in John Fredericks. John Fredericks, the reason we're trying to be ahead of this because our audience demands it. Our partner is actually in Georgia and is going to stay there until the vote takes place. John, you're in, I think, Dalton, Georgia today. You're doing 10 cities in 10 days on a bus tour, and you're going to the heart of Trump country. You're not in those counties that are Democratic strongholds. You're going to Trump country and get a feel for the deplorables. So what can you report? Because the Republican establishment is taking this as a done deal, that all the Trump people are going to show up. They're going to have a nice rally on Saturday, and President Trump's going to go down there. And it's all going to be fine. You're on the ground. You've launched a newspaper called the Georgia Star. You're trying to work a deal for a radio station. You've moved your headquarters down there for a couple of months. Tell us, what's the reality in Dalton, Georgia today?
Steve, thanks for having me. Right now, I can tell you this. If the election were to be held this week, the Democrats would win, and it wouldn't even be close. This is what these Republicans just don't seem to understand. Trump voters who are lower propensity voters in these rural areas are calling me up hour after hour in the morning on my show. They are so upset that the Republican leaders will not fight for them, will not fight for Trump, will not fight for this election. The head of the party in Georgia, led by Brian Kemp, and then you have to go to the male model who you just talked about, Jeff Duncan, Lieutenant Governor, and Brad Raffensperger. They're like the 3 blind mice. They don't do anything, and it's like it's a combination of the 3 blind mice and the 3 stooges. And people are just upset. I'm in Dalton, Georgia today. I had a panel of a state senator, Senator Chuck Payne from Dalton, 2 state representatives, Representatives Casey Carpenter and one other representative was with us. And I got 10 calls from Georgia. Every one of them so angry at these politicians in not doing anything. And the double talk that went on was stunning. I mean, I've got this on tape. You can go to an hour, go to our YouTube channel today, youtube.com, John Fredericks Radio Show. Go to the panel. Caller after caller just upset with the attitude of their state representatives that just refuse to fight. And they're making all kinds of excuses for Raffensperger, why they can't do a special session, why it's a waste of time, why they can't do this, why they can't demand a recall. All the reasons, all they're focused on is the Senate race, and what they're not getting is these Trump voters just aren't going to show up. And it doesn't matter what they say. What they say is irrelevant. It's what they do. And the perception here in Georgia from my caller, Steve, on the ground is they're doing nothing. And so people are just aggravated. Stacey Abrams has already mailed out 950,000 absentee ballots. 950,000. I want you to grasp that number. They are going to go in, these 2 Republican senators, Perdue and Loeffler, are going to go in to January 5th down by 600,000 or 700,000 when you get to game day. You're not going to make this up, and then they're going to steal it again. Nothing is going to change, and these Republican leaders refuse to do anything except for a handful led by Senator Brandon Beach, we call him hashtag beach balls. Other than him, nobody's doing anything. It's incredible. I just had a senator from Dalton, Chuck Payne, on, giving you the reasons why we can't have a hearing, although I think we should have it. We got to have the facts. A special session isn't going to matter. We can't change anything. I had one person call in from Dalton and said, I've spent an hour listening to the three of you guys. Tell us what you can't do. Somebody just tell me what you can do. I want action. No action. It's very frustrating, Steve.
This is why Stacey Abrams has become kind of a legend. She gets things done. I don't see her asking permission to anybody. You may not agree with Stacey Abrams' politics. You might not like her house style. You may not like the way she rolls. Hey, Stacey Abrams got 950,000 mail-in ballots right now. Show me what you got, right? You got a bunch of pencil necks, and they got
nothing.
They got Stacey Abrams on their side of the football, and we got the senator from Dalton who's going to sit there and whine. This is in Pennsylvania, just as bad yesterday. Disgusting, revolting. Cutler, the head of the thing, coming up with 9,000 excuses, right? 9,000 excuses why they can't do anything. But here's my point, John. We got about 2 minutes left. The president, who's in the middle of this fight, right? And the guy they're making fun, Ducey's like not taking his phone call, or they're trying to push he's not taking his phone call. Why is the president going down and supporting this situation right now when it's still an open question? We'll get Laura Trump up later, which I think she talks about, hey, you got to close the deal now. But why are we even having a rally for these Senate races when we have unfinished work to do on not allowing them to steal Georgia? Because there's obviously more than 12,000 votes that they've stolen that are phony and fake and can be easily provable. Why are we doing a rally for these Senate candidates?
See, I think it's folly. If I was President Trump, I wouldn't come until they have a hearing, until Raffensperger decides to audit the signatures of the envelopes and the mail-in ballots, until they acknowledge that a consent decree was signed by Brad Raffensperger that was unauthorized, illegal, and never went to the General Assembly. I mean, I had Senator Payne on. I asked him point blank, did you ever see the consent decree? No. Well, doesn't it violate Georgia law? Senator Beach came on and said the whole election is illegal. Well, no, because all the consent decree really said was that we'd follow the law. No, it didn't. It said that you could mail out absentee ballots. I mean, it's like double talk. So if the president's coming here on December 5th for these two senators, great college try, it's not going to do anything. If he comes on Saturday and demands that Raffensperger does a recount, and that recount includes matching signatures to envelopes and verifying how many of these mail-in ballots were fraudulent, I just want you to grasp this number. 2 years ago, we had 80,000 mail-in ballots. There was a rejection rate of 3.5%. 2 years ago, 2018, 3.5%. 2020, we get, guess what? 850 mail-in ballots. Rejection rate is under 1/3 of 1%. There is no mathematician or statistician that can believe that number.
John, what's your Twitter handle? We got about 15 seconds. How do people get access to you?
Go to @JF Radio Show, @JF Radio Show. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com. Put in John Fredericks Show. We're live in Georgia tomorrow. We'll be in Cartersville. Boy, my phones today, Steve, lit up like a pinball machine.
Love you, brother. We'll try to get you to the 5 o'clock show. Next.
Thanks.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. The last part of that cold open in the last hour was the Project Veritas guys coming into O'Keefe himself coming in like the voice of God into the morning editorial call at CNN and informing Jeff Zucker they had been recording that for the last 2 months, and he's going to release it tonight at 7 o'clock. So that should be interesting to see what CNN has been plotting this entire time in the election process. So much going on today. News all over. Number one, Wisconsin at 11 o'clock. The bobsled, Bob Spindall and company, I think they're having a commission meeting. It's going to be Zoomed. We're going to try to pick it up. They're also, I believe, going to drop the mother of all lawsuits is going to get dropped in Wisconsin, dealing with these phony ballots. They call them dead to rights. Posobiec's going to join us in a second. In Michigan, there are hearings today, real hearings going on today in Michigan about particularly Wayne County, right, the 135,000 ballots there. Phil Klein is going to have a blockbuster. Phil Klein is a no BS guy, former Attorney General of Kansas, great investigator. He's got 3 whistleblowers at 2 o'clock at a hotel in Northern Virginia. Going to have a press conference. Real America's Voice, I think, is going to try to pick it up, the live stream. GTV is going to be over there, too. Many other people are going to be covering this wall to wall. I think National Pulse, Raheem was the guy that launched the whole Phil Klein effort, in the media effort. So Phil Klein will either be on National Pulse or they'll have breaking scoops today. This is a big story. It essentially says they have truck drivers that are going to come forward that had filled in ballots between 144,000 and 288,000 filled in ballots going, across state lines to be dropped off at certain locations to shift this election. And he's got people going to, I guess, stand up in front of the microphone and say this. Phil Klein is a very tough hombre. Also, to make sure that we're always giving you tomorrow's news today. A couple weeks ago, Matt Gaetz was here, co-hosted the show twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, talked about the Politico finally woke up to the story that it doesn't stop on December 14th. And I can tell you, you saw in Arizona yesterday, let's connect some dots. Arizona had some congressional members sat in the audience yesterday, and they were furious about what they heard. And you've got the Constitution allows for this to be fought, guess where? In Congress in January. And it just takes one congressman and one senator. And Gaetz has already kind of thrown down. He gave a heads up a couple of weeks ago, talked about this. Big story in Politico. We're going to try to get Bill McGinley on later or in the evening show to deconstruct this. But this is not going to stop on the 14th. Okay, this is all in. And you're seeing now congressional delegations. And we're going to put the pressure on those guys in Pennsylvania. People are going to have to stand up and be accounted for. Hey, if you don't back this and you don't think anything went wrong, hey, that's fine. It's a free country. I got that. This is an advocacy system. We're supposed to be able to put out the evidence. We think the receipts are there in excruciating detail. It'll be put forward. If congressional guys don't want to do it, that's fine. But you're going to have to own that vote. You're going to have to own everything going forward. Ducey's going to have to own this. Kemp's going to own this, right? So and so Gaetz broke this a couple weeks ago. We get more of that. I want to bring Posobiec in because there's so much happening. First off, Jack, you've done, I think, the best job of anybody in covering Wisconsin. You covered the first, I think, on your Periscope. It was 3 hours. You did live stream with the classic Jack Posobiec commentary that we're so used to. Talk to us first about what's going to happen today in Wisconsin, because the mainstream media, they're saying, hey, Trump paid $3 million and it shifted to 122 votes. What a moron, right? What really went on in this audit over the weekend? How did they have to do it like that? And they made a strategic decision to be quiet about it. They didn't get out there and push that in the stories. And the reason is this morning and what's going to happen right after. So Posobiec, walk us through, which we've said on this show for weeks, the lowest hanging fruit is Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, you have the new Iron Brigade is not going to back down, led by Spindall. Take it away, Posobiec.
Yeah, Steve, that's exactly right. And in fact, one thing that I have been told by members of the team up there is that they do actually think Wisconsin, of all the states, really is the one that seems to be the most likely to flip, the one where they can get action and traction on these outstanding issues of discrepancies. And we've talked about the 3 different avenues of problems that went on in Wisconsin in the past. So there's 2 things that are going to happen today. Number one, you're going to hear Dean Knudsen and Bob the Great Spindell talk about, the USS Spindell really talk about their response to this recount. And I want to be very clear to everybody that they knew that the recount would essentially affirm the same count as before. The issue was that they were going through and systematically having Trump supporters, Trump legal observers go through with these ballots, and in specifically Dane County, not really so much for Milwaukee County, Bob will get into that more later, where they were actually able to sit with just a pane of plexiglass in between them and actually review the ballots, right? For the first time anywhere, actually review what was written on these ballots. They were then able to make legal challenges. There were also legal challenges that were done in Milwaukee County. So between the two, you're definitely going to see north of 100,000 ballots that will now be challenged by the Trump campaign in lawsuits going forward. And so this was always the plan. The plan was not necessarily to just recount what had been done on November 3rd to affirm that. The idea was this recount process, specifically in the two states that were targeted, or two counties that were targeted, Dane and Milwaukee, where Biden did have that 2-to-1 ratio, that gave you access to be able to sit down and go through these ballots, to audit them, to see what was actually written on them, where they could say, you know what, we're not going to award anymore, like Josh Shapiro and Kathy Bookvar in Pennsylvania. We're going to sit down with the legal team. And by the way, invite the Democrats to sit down right next to us so we can take a look at them and they can be there to explain any questions that may arise. So you're going to see Bob respond to that as well. But there's a second piece because of Governor Evers and what he did yesterday.
Okay, I want to hang on for that for a second because I want to go back to make sure our audience fully understands this. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, one falls, they all fall. Okay, this will be a domino effect because the rats will start scurrying off the ships. One falls, they all fall. The reason Wisconsin's perfect is you have these Dean Knudsen and Bob Spindall are like from a Norman Rockwell. They're just average. They're average American citizens, but they're not going to back down. I want to go back in time though, and we're going to hold you over for the next one because people have to understand this. I want to go back in time to this all-night commission meeting where the Democrats, and this is how they roll. This is what cheaters they are. Talk to them about this manual, how they try to sit there and change the manual to comport to state law because they got caught red-handed. There are two. This is going to be over 100,000 votes, and there's two scams going on. There's an early voting scam using absentee ballots. There's no early voting in Wisconsin. They had a scam. They got caught dead to rights. There's also this scam where you have these indefinitely people that are like in nursing homes, et cetera. They can get a ballot. Normally, I think it's between 15,000 or 20,000, something like that. Indefinitely confined, I think the term is, the term of art, the nomenclature. 235,000. Complete scam. We know this from the guys in Switzerland, other people we work with. This is how they're stealing it, okay? They were caught red-handed in Wisconsin, not by fire breathers, by Wisconsin Nice. But Wisconsin Nice also has a spine of steel, and will say, nope, that's just not the way, that's not the rules, right? Go back to what happened on that meeting that you covered for like until 1 a.m. What did the Democrats try to do in trying to change this manual, Jack Posobiec?
Trying to do is exactly what we just outlined. They were trying to make the recount be a non-audit. So originally, and Wisconsin does recounts differently than any other state. Richard Barris talked about this way before this even started. He's the one who identified this first. I think it was the first that I heard it from. That Wisconsin, a recount is actually a strict audit of ballot by ballot going through this vote. What they were trying to do was they were trying to use COVID as an imprimatur to go in and change these fundamental cornerstones of the recount process in Wisconsin to make it essentially just a recount, one of these, we'd call them like a fake audit, like was done in Georgia and some of the others, where they're not actually checking anything. They're not checking ballot integrity. They're not checking signatures. They're not checking addresses for their fullness. They're not checking to see who completed it. Was it clerk cured? So clerk curing, that's something that you're going to hear about very much. That's going to be looked at. And again, completely illegal. Also, they're digging into the absentee ballot process themselves. Something where the Trump lawyer, one of the lead lawyers there in Wisconsin, said, "Look, if this invalidates my vote and the vote of my wife, then so be it. because this was an unconstitutional process, and we're here to stand on the side of the rule of law. So what they were trying to do in that commission was to wave that all to the side, to push that all to the side, and to make it so that it would simply skip past all of those steps and all of those safeguards and all those checks that were pre-built into Wisconsin recounts. And what Bob and Dean said was, they did the old William F. Buckley Jr. adage of two men standing athwart history saying, "Stop."
That's perfect. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Posobiec, what's your Twitter handle? People, if you want to get some of the best coverage, don't go to Associated Press. You don't need to go to Fox News. Just go to Jack Posobiec's Twitter feed because he's breaking news all day long and connecting dots on every field. What's your Twitter handle?
I go to at Jack Posobiec, JCKPOSOBIEC. The last thing is that this certification, they're going to blow this up. That what Governor Evers did in Wisconsin.
We're going to bring you back after the break because I got finished with Wisconsin, but I would just want people in the middle of this to be following you. Okay, we take a short commercial break. We're going to return. We got the one and only Jack Posobiec from One American News. We will return with Wisconsin, and then we're going to talk about the blockbuster Phil Klein. The hammer drops today.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Action, action, action. You saw yesterday a 14-hour hearing in Arizona to walk through the receipts. Today in Michigan, in front of the another hearing. You've got, I believe, tomorrow. I think Rudy may be back in Michigan tomorrow. Maybe we'll break some news there. You've got a massive development out of Wisconsin starting at 11 o'clock. There's going to be a commission meeting, and then I believe they're going to drop a megaton lawsuit with over 100,000 illegal votes, which the Democrats tried to steal, right? So for all the baseless foundations, one other thing, the mainstream media, not one story in the mainstream media, including Associated Press or Reuters, who ought to be ashamed of themselves, not one story coming out of Wisconsin the entire weekend mentioned the fact, which Jack Posobiec of One American News just mentioned, was the key fact. Barris said it on this show weeks ago, that in the reason Trump paid that money is that the way Wisconsin law is written, you're doing the audit at the same time you're doing the recount. All they came out and did was mock and ridicule. Oh, it's 122 votes more for Biden. That's a nice $3 million. That's not the purpose. And today is to show you the purpose. You are disgusting because now you've all become propaganda arms. Well, today, in starting in courts, you're not going to be able to run and hide from this anymore. I want to go back to Jack Posobiec. So tell us what else in Wisconsin. What did the governor have to do to even give us more ammo out there, sir?
So this is really interesting, and people need to definitely pay attention to what's going on because they're trying to end around this again. Yesterday, there was news that came out, or purported news that came out, that said that Governor Evers had certified Wisconsin. We heard that how many times from the media? Recount ends, governor certifies. Recount ends, Wisconsin certifies, right? The drumbeat, the NLP was going fast and furious. However, all of a sudden, Dean Knudsen and Bob Spindell take to Twitter, and Dean Knudsen says, the Democrat chair of the Wisconsin Election Commission and the Democrat-controlled Wisconsin DOJ and Democrat Governor Evers all colluded to violate the law today. The Elections Commission, not chair alone, for presidential electors, the commission shall prepare a certificate showing the determination of the results of the canvass. Evers claims to have signed the certificate already. However, the administrator emailed and said, today, as you know, the chair made determinations. This does not result in the issuance of a certificate of election. The plain language of Wisconsin state law is simple. It does not give this power to the Democrat chair of the commission alone. The full commission is going to discuss prior to sending to Governor Evers for signing. They asked twice more in writing, and they are holding up the plain language of the law of the state of Wisconsin, which says the commission in full must send over the determination to be certified. It cannot be the Democrats directly to the governor, which is what they are alleging took place. So let me break this down for people. They are saying that the certification of Wisconsin is fake, and that if governor ever signed it, either he signed something that's not a certification or he broke Wisconsin law.
Is that the 11 o'clock is going to be the commission? Because I know Knutson and Spindall are both going to be on it. They're also going to be the Democrat.
Yes, in about 20 minutes here.
Okay, it's going to be Zoom. We're going to try to pick up some of that. It'll be I'm sure as contentious as the last one. But today, going forward, my understanding is going to be a massive lawsuit dropped with
Spindell. If I can throw in here, Steve, real quick. Spindell's gone even further. He says the Wisconsin Election Commission chair, Ann Jacobs, and the Wisconsin election staff violated the law and the trust of Wisconsin voters by sending an unauthorized certification to the governor when they had agreed to ratification only. This is a cheap Democrat publicity stunt, and it changes nothing in Trump's under the statute right to appeal in 5 days. And that's directly from the bobsled himself. These guys know the law. They know it chapter and verse. They took an oath, and they mean to hold to it seriously. They meant it when they put their hands up and took that oath. That's what Bob Spinell is holding. And so not only does he say, you didn't certify, wait. Number two, the Trump campaign has a right as a candidate, the same way any candidate would, to challenge within 5 days. You guys are breaking the law if you're going down this road.
The CNN audience is going to have to get up to speed from the massive spigot of misinformation they just sort of come to the war room. They can get it months ago. But this is all going to catch them by surprise because they're told this is all baseless. They're about to get a big old shock today in Wisconsin.
They just caught up to us on Wuhan. They caught up to us to where we were in January.
Only took a year, Jack. Only took a year.
Only took a year for Jake to get there. Come down to the townhouse, Jake. You know where it is.
In Zucker, exactly. With the Naval Intelligence Officer Jack Posobiec, who speaks perfect Mandarin, Miles Guo and the team over the whistleblower movement.
We'll walk you through this.
Walk you through it, and Dr. Yang. Let's go to. I want to go to Phil Klein. Phil Klein, and Raheem, jump in here because you've been so critical of actually giving Phil Klein a platform. Phil Klein is a former attorney general of Kansas. He's a guy that's a little controversial. When he went after the abortion clinics and the abortionists, he went after the abortion clinics and the abortionists, right? And when Phil Klein gets you in the gun sights, right, stuff happens. Action. Not just is he a great attorney general, he's also an amazing investigator in pulling together investigative resources. And so today at 2 o'clock at a hotel right across the Potomac here in Northern Virginia, there's going to be a blockbuster press conference. He's got 3 whistleblowers who are coming forward and basically saying that they are part of a truck drivers or in the transportation across state lines filled in ballots for Joe Biden, and the range of those ballots is 144,000 to 288,000. So, Jack, tee us up for this, and Raheem, jump in because you've been very close to the entire. And this is what I'm so proud: the Amistad Project of the Thomas More, and Thomas More would be for all those people that are
careful now.
That love Thomas More, right. Well, I'm not going to talk about how Thomas More left the earth. No, but Thomas More would I think be amazingly happy about what's happening with the society that is under his name. So, Jack, what's Phil Klein got today?
We know, of course, Steve, that Thomas More stood for the side of law, and he also famously stood up for the fact that every person is entitled to a rebuttal. Every person is entitled to having their day in court. All right, that's something that Thomas More is known for. And now that is what Phil Klein is doing and saying, hey, wait a minute. You guys are, you go on YouTube right now, and I'm sure you can look at this video right now, and it'll have that little tagline underneath that says, there are robust safeguards on every election. It has been checked and has been verified, right? Robust safeguards. right? And the people at YouTube aren't running the election. They want you to think they are, but they're not. And they put that little tagline underneath because they want you to think that it's already happened. No, Phil Klein is a robust safeguard to this election, and that's what you're going to see this afternoon at 2 p.m. over in Arlington. You're going to see a robust safeguard of someone getting in there and going to put out information that a lot of people don't want him to make public. This information about potential fraud, potential malfeasance and misuse of ballots crossing state lines, stuff that's pre-filled out. Look, you got a whistleblower coming forward. We've had how many whistleblowers coming forward, right? This isn't, and by the way, this isn't like the CIA whistleblower who you can't say name, right? We know his name. We can't say it, right? These are people, you can meet them, you can shake their hand, you can ask them what happened, you can challenge them, right? He is making them public, and he's putting his reputation on the line. They're putting their reputations, their careers on the line. They believe the words that they are putting out. They believe these assertions to be true, and it's up to those robust safeguards have to investigate every one of these. That's why, and I thank God, in a sense, that at least the FBI has finally started reaching out to Phil Klein and Matt Braynard because of all of the evidence that they are putting together. Frankly, I feel like they're doing their job for them.
Raheem.
Look, this is part of a much wider operation that's going on with the Amistad Project and Phil Klein and the team. And we've been incredibly honored that Phil's been on with us on this show and on the National Pulse show so many times. Let's just recap on this. So this afternoon at 2 p.m., we're expecting at this press conference, and I believe we will be covering it live on Real America's Voice and on YouTube, etc. as well. A Pennsylvania postal truck driver is going to allege that there are an estimated 144,000 to 288,000 pre-completed ballots shipped across 3 state lines back in October, in advance of the election. Now, you look at this, and in the context of what they've been doing, the Amistad Project have been doing recently, and there was recently an opinion piece by Newt Gingrich, and it was headlined, "Laziness leads to sloppiness." And that was the tee up to this. It's the sloppy part of this that we're now getting into, and it's the sloppy part of the cleanup that we're now starting to see. So this afternoon, I think it will be must watch television as these people go out and they say step by step what they saw with their very own, and they're signing affidavits. This isn't just people going up there and making claims like we saw all through the Russia investigation, all through all of that. There's actual signed affidavits, people putting their lives, their livelihoods, their jobs on the line.
Phil Klein is everywhere. I mean, he's got an investigative apparatus that's looking in Wisconsin. He's been doing amazing work in Michigan. He's been, incredible about these lawsuits, even in Nevada. Can you give us any news? I understand this is going to be big today, right? Any news of how this developed, how these guys came to them, how they got it? Because this is something that has been rumored that there was something big in Pennsylvania. There was something that once you saw it, it would make sense of how they did the finesse.
There is a great example that we found in our research. For example, there were massive amounts of votes in Pennsylvania that were actually voted before the ballots had ever been sent out. I mean, we have proof of this. So this sort of supports that notion. Also, I'd like to say that right now for our audience, there are folk heroes walking amongst us. These truck drivers are some of them. In future time, we're going to remember these as patriots who were brave enough to step forward. And as for our state legislatures, depending on what their job description, the only thing that they're required to swear to is to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And as long as we hold them to that oath, we're going to be okay, people. This Constitution is a strong document built on granite and built on the backs of you deplorables.
Jack, any other observations you've got? I know you got to bounce. Jack Posobiec of One American News. We got about a minute. Where do you think we stand as of today in the whole battle map?
There's a phrase that's been going around other than courage is contagious, and I would say that it's, if the situation were hopeless, the propaganda would be unnecessary, right? They would not be trying so hard to gaslight you every day in the mainstream media if the situation were hopeless. They would ignore you. they would go and talk about how great Joe Biden is and how wonderful his cabinet is going to be and how amazing his presidency is going to be. And yet that's the dog that isn't barking right now, because nobody's talking about, they're talking about nominees here and there, but nobody's talking about the grand sweeping changes he's going to make or the amazing policies he's going to put forward. There isn't a person talking about that. There's zero activity. The guy, he took a spill, I guess, on Saturday. Media covered it up for 24 hours, or maybe Biden covered it up for 24 hours, right? They can barely keep it together over there. Meanwhile, in the Trump transition, which of course
Jack,
played a part in,
Jack, hang on.
Remember that Trump Tower and the activity.
Jack, we got to bounce. Jack Posobiec.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. One of the things when you're a member of the War Room here is the homages people do or play about you. Jack Posobiec has an homage of Jack Mack. Jack Mack is very upset that Posobiec now owns Courage is Courageous. Courage is Contagious. Right? That was a Jack Maxey line that Posobiec is now taking for his own. I think he's trademarked it.
Well, he's proved my point. Courage is contagious. Thanks for catching on, Jack.
Yeah, Jack's done some fantastic work. Do we have? I know we're trying to pull the Gates.
Love you, brother.
I want to get the Matt Gates thing we have from Coverwood. Do we have somebody working on that? Not Denver. If we get one of our guys working on it, producer Vish. That story in Politico today has him in full meltdown. It does not end. Only with victory does it end on the 14th, right? If the Electoral College is not, if these are not rescinded, which they should be, right? This goes all the way into the House in January. Matt Gaetz laid it out here on the show a couple of weeks ago. Politico finally reported on it, and the progressive left and the mainstream media, and of course the establishment in Washington is a complete and total meltdown. Donald Trump and the Trump movement are not going away. Now, we've got some breaking news, Greg, out of Michigan. Remember, hearings going on in Michigan, and one of the people you've heard on the show many, many times has actually been giving testimony. What's happened, Greg?
Yes, former State Senator Patrick Kolbeck is testifying in front of the Oversight Committee right now and has adamantly stated that Michigan the state legislature should take control of the appointment of electors.
Now, I think this is what's important, and this is why Greg and the other guys in the war room are focused on this, is that they're going to all get crossed by Democrats, which is fine, right? Just like in court. That's why we want some evidentiary hearings. Hey, the receipts either stand up or they don't stand up. If they don't stand up, hey, that's fine, right? Then move on. Let's do it. But it's time to get the receipts into venues where they can be analyzed and gone through and argued and see if they're real or not. We happen to think they're real, the ones we reviewed. What's most interesting about what's happening this afternoon, Phil Klein and the Amistad guys, who are working on many, many, many of the states, right, really know how to keep the lid on. Raheem, there's no leakage on this thing at all. I mean, they kind of gave people heads up last night, said it was going to be a hold this morning, put it out, I guess, late last night because it started to leak a little bit. But what's going on? You're as close to these guys as anybody.
Well, I mean, it's very. Look, let's start there. I am very close with all of them, and we had Phil Klein on first, and I'm very close with the PR team that they're working with, and all of it. And even I cannot get further details, more detailed information out. And when you've got something, that's what you do. When you have the goods, you don't give it to anybody. And I mean, look, it's like the James O'Keefe stuff. From CNN that's coming out at 7 p.m. tonight. People say, "Oh, why is it on at 7 p.m.?" Well, whatever. You're leading into the best Tucker, into the best news cycle, point in the news cycle that you can get, and you don't put anything out in advance that gives the game away. So I am expecting and hoping for something incredibly solid. And here's the thing: the reason I put Phil Klein on, I think we were the first show to put Phil Klein on, was I went through the evidence. And he had it, and it was real, and he has been rock solid ever since. So there's nothing for me to suggest that this isn't going to be anything other than explosive.
This also will tie together a lot of the finesse in Pennsylvania. There's the statistical analysis is irrefutable, right? Of the timing of what happened and what was the outcome of what happened. The question gets to be, what was the delivery mechanism, right? This could be look, we're not promising this, but this is, this because this is Phil Klein's deal. And if they actually can show, if they can actually have people stand up there and say, hey, I saw the ballots, I drove the ballots, I drove across state lines, they filled them out somewhere and we took them in, and they're between 144,000 and 288,000, that unless some truck driver knows and has been going through, from Dr. Shiva to the analytical team Jack has to the guys that have been working with Revolver, to the people that Raheem Kassam crowdsourced, there's 6 or 7 teams that have all come to the same conclusion, top statistical guys, many of whom people should understand are not Trump supporters, didn't vote for Trump. Not Trump, either just patriots that won't think the election will be fair, or just mathematicians saying, hey, this is the reality of what happened. So,
the other thing that I think should be pointed out here, if it's true that these truckers were driving these things across state lines, this takes the investigation out of the hands of those state prosecutors and hands it right into the hands of the FBI and the Department of Justice. This is
that makes me feel so good.
I'm not saying, but I'm not saying, but at least their feet should be held to the fire.
No,
here.
I agree with you. And by the way, this thing about the FBI being involved, it's a guy in a field office in L.A. that contacted people, Klein and others, and saying, hey, I want information. I see this is not on the one today, but on the previous analysis that's coming forward. This is some field office guy who's seen it in the paper, seen it in media, and obviously saying, hey, but it calls the home office. Is anybody checking on this? Crickets.
And also a couple months ago, I mentioned the fact that the United States Postal Service Union was in support of Joe Biden, and then you see all these shenanigans occurring in their trucks and their delivery. For example, in Pennsylvania, we found that a Republican had a 72% greater chance of having his ballot lost in transit, either being returned to the voting site or being mailed out to the voter. Part of this has to, everything is not by happenstance.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why the watchword is hold the line. This is part of a process in a longer war. Jack Posobiec nailed it. One of the things we've been saying is that there is no heat on what is the faux Biden administration. Normally, when this happens, you have the stories of everything they're going to do. You have the 10 leaks about who wants to be Secretary of Treasury. You have the 10 leaks about who wants to be on the Council of Foreign Relations, or who wants to be on the Council of Economic Advisors, who wants to be NSC. What he's done is reach out to all retreads, right? Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken. The article today in Tony Blinken, I think, in the Hill about how he's not going to get confirmed, talking about what we've been dumping out there. Because there's no heat on Biden. The reason there's no heat on Biden, they're trying to still sell through information warfare. They're trying to sell you that he actually won. We're not buying it. Nobody's buying it. The more information, every day that goes by, and look, we're going to have good days, and we're going to have days that are less good, okay? But every day that goes by, the information just keeps coming up, and you're starting to get people that are not Trump supporters are saying, hey, the fix was in, or as Tariq says, the finesse. He called it on, I think it was November 4th on the morning about the finesse. We're going to be back in a moment. Probably go live to Wisconsin when I hear this commission meeting. We're going to be back with Dr. Yan also in the next hour.